Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the RTG Dirt Series. We're about ready to go green here at Knoxville Speedway for the running of our 358 modified class so far tonight. My name is Anthony McCurry. Alongside of me is Seth Cole. Seth, we're ready to go some dirt racing. We got two races on tap tonight.
Two races, two champions to be crowned here in their season finales. And I'll tell you what, I don't know what it was, but the last 3 weeks really set up for a great championship battle here tonight. Steve Robbins with the victory last week at Fairbury now makes it a three-man fight between himself, Brian Hogue, and points leader Grant Wesley. 11-point separation, and so a lot riding on the line here tonight in Knoxville here for the 358s.
Indeed so. And speaking of one of those drivers that you mentioned, Brian Hogue, my bad, starts on the pole for our first heat of the night. Two heats will be ran before the main event starts, and they will be 8 laps in length. So, going to see what these drivers can do in order to get the best starting position they can for our main event in the 358s. After that, we've got the late models will be ran after all the said and done here. But for now, we got to set them loose for some wild action here at Knoxville. A very slippery track. We've noticed a lot during the practice. They were slipping and sliding all over, but you can expect that in a dirt race. Pace truck peels off. We're getting ready to go green here at Knoxville.
Lady Luck smiling on Brian Hogue here because all drivers in this first heat theoretically are battling for the pole position for the main event.
Yeah, they are, and they're trying their hardest into turn number 1. Everyone looks like they're getting out of there cleanly. Oh, there's some contact in the back, though, between Todd Mallory and a couple of other people. They're trying to get it nice and settled, but in front of them, you got Grant Wesley, one of those championship contenders on the inside of the 15 of Kurrigan.
Now we have to remember that these heats not only important in terms of starting track position, but actually points are given out to the top 3 finishers as well. So even these heats could play a big factor into the championship battle.
And right now we've got them kind of single filed out. I think a lot of them know that, and they understand that they're trying not to damage their cars as much as they can. Although I say that, now we got a side-by-side battle. What is for the 4th place position between Kurrigan and Poland. They are trying to keep it off each other. They're slipping and sliding, but they're keeping it clean. The track's nice and wide for them to make these moves, though. So not a whole lot of contact should be made, but so far, wheeling it on the inside, the 30 of Poland is going to get the position. Whoa, a little bobble, too.
You got to wonder how much experimentation is going on right now as well, because as stated, for some of these guys like Grant Wesley and Brian Hogue, they're trying to rack up points in this heat towards the championship. For everybody else, they're probably trying to figure out what this track's going to feel like on a long run. Obviously not a lot of laps to be able to be run here in this heat, but, you can still learn something for when you end up having the track worn down later on in the main event race.
And that valuable information for these drivers is going to carry over. We're going to give them dividends later on, because this race is short compared to the long haul, and you can already see on the inside, the extreme inside line, that there's already a bit of a line forming where the drivers don't want to be at. Now Wesley is caught up to Hogue in the 88, so the battle for the lead here in Heat 1. This could set up your pole. And what do you think Wesley is thinking right now? Do you think he wants to get up there and try to take it, or do you think he'd be comfortable starting 3rd on the inside line?
Well, I don't know, to tell you the truth. I almost kind of think that he has to go for it here, because I know it's difficult to find clean air at a dirt track. That's kind of an oxymoron, but nonetheless, you want to be out there ahead of any incidents that take place. So I think if you're Grant Wesley, you're eyeing that 14 right now as a championship competitor, and you want to be first to the finish line, even though this is just a qualifying race. So we'll see if he makes any kind of a dive bomb move here as they come to the white flag. 1
lap to go as they come out of turn 4 for the penultimate time. And now Hogue trying to get a bit of a lead. They've been running consistently. I've noticed that Hogue and Wesley are kind of running a similar line, but not to be, as I think the race is saying it unofficial now. Oh, to Wesley to the inside line. He's trying to make a dive bomb move at the very end of the race. I don't think he's going to get there, though. And that was the last lap that we saw earlier. So Hogue will take the win here. Our ticker kind of gave us a little bit of a psych there, but all is fair. We are about ready to start our second heat race, which is going to continue, going to have another 6 drivers involved. So,
all right. So let's do a little bit of math real quickly here. As far as Brian Hogue and Grant Wesley, with winning the first heat, 5 bonus points go to Hogue, 3 bonus points to the second place finisher of Grant Wesley. So that is 2 points that Brian Hogue was able to gain on Grant Wesley right there. Hogue, of course, coming into this race 11 points back. So now 9 point separation between those two. Now we have to see what Steve Robbins is going to be able to do in the second heat.
And Steve Robbins is going to start all the way at the back of the pack in this second heat, 6 out of 6. So he's got a lot of ground to make up. We saw Wesley be able to do it that last time out, so we should see some similar result from the driver of the 073. Another 8 laps will make up this race. Brian James will be on point for the start of our Heat 2, and then Ryan Stillwell will be out to his outside in the very purple and white number 9 machine. So Seth, since we've seen what happened in the first heat, what do you think we're going to see in the second heat? More of the same, or do we see some drivers maybe test the waters a little bit, see what they can really do with these cars here at this track?
Well, I mean, to be honest with you, I think that what we saw there in that first heat is going to be very similar to what we'll see in this second heat. I think we may see not necessarily panic, but certainly some aggression out of Steve Robbins, because he realizes he has to counter the bonus points that his 2 championship competitors got in the first heat. And I think I've been noticing here too, and I'm kind of wondering how much of a factor it plays with the ability of side-by-side racing, is when these drivers come through the corners, the back end of the car kind of bogs down by the right rear, and it lifts the left front tire up off the ground. That hurts the turning ability for these race cars, so that might actually play a little bit of a factor as well into why drivers are a little bit hesitant to try making some moves.
And on the inside line, there's also a little bit of an elevation change right down where the wall is, and you don't want to get up there because that could unsettle the car even more, especially because you are on dirt. Any little thing you do will affect it. We're about to go to green. Green flag is out. A little bit of a late hold that James had on the rest of the field, but now Stillwell on the outside line trying to make something happen. He's going to muscle his way around the outside line and take the lead of the race.
Ryan Stillwell not competing for the championship, and I think he's got something to prove here. Tonight is, little contact there between himself and James, and he's going to send Gibson hard into the wall. Now remember, no cautions in these heats. We basically raced the checkered flag with no yellow flags coming out, so no opportunity for recovery for either Gibson. I believe the other car that went around, correct me if I'm wrong, was the 073 of Steve Robbins.
It was Steve Robbins. He is now struggling at the back of the pack. I don't think he was made any contact. He did have to slow down. Still going, though, and that's going to hurt him a lot, though, because he's got a lot of ground to make up if he wants to try and get a better starting position. Out front, you've got Brian James and now Ethan Sprague trying to battle for the lead of the race. This is an intense battle to the inside. Goes to 017 trying to get a run.
For Gibson now on pit road, and if Steve Robbins cannot get up here inside of the top 3 going into the main event, it's going to be Grant Wesley in the points lead, and Brian Hogue will leapfrog Robbins for second place. Look at this, near contact again off of turn 4 between the 017 and the 6, and Ryan Stillwell's not done. Now going back to what I was going to say about Ryan Stillwell, a 4-time winner this season along with Grant Wesley. I think he's out to prove here tonight that he wants to be top of the statistics of wins this season. Of course, finished 15th back at, I believe it was Charlotte Dirt, and then the week after was not able to run at Lima Land, which took him out of the championship contention. I have to wonder, if he hadn't missed that 1 week, would we have been looking at a 4-dog fight here tonight? I think we would have.
Yeah, given the pace that Stillwell has, even in this heat, definitely he would have been a contender, and that just proves that how much the consistency matters. He missed the 1 race, like you said, and then now all of a sudden he's not in the championship hunt. It would have been nice to see a 4-car fight, but Stillwell proving that he belongs up in the top dogs, and he is going to play spoiler tonight for the Buns in the battle for the championship. Sprague right now is in a battle for first place, trying to get around. White flags in the air. I don't know if he's got enough time to do it.
See if he's going to be able to get to the inside line. Actually, looks like he's going to the outside line. Remember, these Heat 2 drivers run a worn-in track that the Heat 1 drivers were on, so the option may be on the top line for Ethan Sprague rather than on the inside where most drivers have been running here tonight. Just half a racetrack to go here. What is Ethan Sprague going to be able to do here through 3 and 4?
Doesn't look like much. He's going to track to the outside, almost get the guardrail, but on the inside, Brian James will win Heat 2 tonight, and he will start second place for our main event race. That was a spirited battle, though, by Ethan Sprague, and you got to wonder, those are the kind of things that we're going to see later on in the night, and this main event is going to be intense, I feel.
How about Brian James? Great performance here today. He might be en route for his best finish of the season. So far, his best finish was 4th place, and that was a few weeks ago at Cedar Lake. He's only got 2 finishes inside the top 5 here this season, having run all but 1 of the races so far on the schedule. So as these drivers now take an opportunity for warm-up, kind of get used to the track again as it has been re-watered. That grip will be back. A couple of takeaways here, Anthony. Obviously, Steve Robin finds himself in a bit of a hole. And a big reason for that is only 12 drivers are scheduled to take the green flag here tonight. So you come into a race already 10 points back from the points leader, and there's only 12 positions that you can really pick up against that points leader. That's a very tall mountain to climb, especially based on the fact that Grant Wesley picked up some bonus points in that first heat.
It's going to require Wesley and the other driver to finish at the back of the pack, and it's going to require Robbins to finish first place. So that is a tall order when you come into this kind of event, knowing that you have those tall odds against you. What does a driver's mentality go into? Do you think that it is a must-win scenario, but it's more than that. It's something that you have to have the other drivers have bad luck. So do you go in it thinking that there's no way to win, so you kind of back off? Or of course you don't do that, but is he going to try to get this win and maybe make a statement if nothing else?
Well, I mean, there's no repercussions if you end up wrecking yourself out trying to win this championship. It's the season finale, so, go out there at 110%. Your championship is on the line. You've got to at least get up there to the front. If Wesley runs into trouble, all right, then your chances have improved. If he doesn't, at least you know that you proved to everybody out there that despite the points deficit, if you'd maybe been in a single-digit deficit to the 88, you would have been a prime contender to take that championship trophy away from him. But, I mean, Grant Wesley coming into this season absolutely looks like championship caliber. Just to run through some of his statistics, in 14 starts, 4 trips to victory lane, 9 top 5s, and 11 top 10s. I mean, he has been absolutely on it. And the funny part about it is, too, a lot of those wins came during the second half of the season, so kind of turning up the wick when it mattered the most.
Yeah, knowing that the season was coming to an end, knew that he had to make some moves, and did indeed do so, did the driver of the 88 machine. And that's kind of what we've come to expect out of some drivers that we've gotten to know over the years of doing FRN races, where we tend to know their patterns, and Grant Wesley is one of those drivers that sometimes will not show very much strength in the beginning part of the season, but once you get into the second half of the season, that's when everything kind of ramps up, and they know that they have to win the race in order to really put their foot in the door for the championship, and he's done so tonight. So we'll have to see how he does. And that's just one driver. We have 3 drivers in the championship hunt tonight. One of them starting on pole, Brian Hogue. You know that he's hungry. What does Brian Hogue need to do in order to win this 50-lap main event and take the championship?
Stay out in front and keep the 88 in your rearview mirror. I think those are the 2 main goals right now. Don't worry about where Grant Wesley is on the racetrack. As long as you are ahead of him, that is what you need to focus on. Let everything that takes place behind you take care of itself. Just focus on keeping that car out in front, maintaining the track position for the entirety of this race.
The starting lineup goes as follows, and you'll see on your bottom side of your screen that is we are getting set to go for this race. Right now, Brian Hogue is starting first place for the race. That is what he needs to have happen in order to have the best shot and take the championship, because we've seen it, if you start out front, then you've actually got a pretty good chance to stay out front. Brian James will be lining up to his outside. They got Grant Wesley, another one of those drivers in the hunt for the championship. He is going to be starting right behind Hogue on the inside line. Then you have Ethan Sprague to the outside, Sean Green, Ryan Stillwell, Travis Pullen, Scott Munskard, Sean Kerrigan, Steve Roberts, Todd Mallory, and Rick Gibson. The long shot starts all the way at the back of the pack. So what do we have to see in order for everyone in this race to have the best race that they have possibly can? Because the fireworks are going off. They're getting ramped up. They know it's a long race, and we have only seen a fraction of what these drivers can do.
Yeah, I love it here at Knoxville. The fireworks go off during the pacing lap, maybe transcending what's going to be taking place as soon as that green flag drops in terms of fireworks here on the racing surface. One thing I noticed, Anthony, you pointed out how spacious this track is. You can clearly see there's about 6-7 lanes available to these drivers with just how wide it is. But in those heats, didn't see anybody go way up to the extreme outside line. So it'll be interesting to see as we progress further into this 50-lapper here tonight, if that extreme wall line does come into play, or is there enough room that it's going to be out of commission?
We've seen over the course of the many dirt races that we've done, once the worn out part of the track gets too tough to handle, that's when everyone migrates to the outside. We'll have to see if that's the case here tonight. Brian Hogue and Brian James will get us underway. Green flags in the air. We're racing here at Knoxville, and everyone's spreading out into turn 1.
Utilizing all those lanes available here into 1 and 2. Look at Brian James. He goes high, wide, and handsome. 3 wide, possibly for the lead. Whoa, someone got loose back there. I think that might have possibly been Mallory. No, Sean Green in the 27. That was a heck of a save on the inside line.
It was indeed. They're going 3. Whoa, we got a car around. The 9 is around Stillwell into the wall. Also the 14 of Brian Hogue into the wall.
And that was your pole sitter, your Heat 1 winner, and oh yeah, championship contender coming in tonight. Now the good news is, these drivers do have one faster pair at their disposal for this 50-lapper, but I think if you're Brian Hogue, the last thing you want to do is use that faster pair as early as lap 2.
And the last thing you want to do is have to use it at all, and he has to try and keep his nose clean throughout the race. He was leading the way coming out of turn, I believe that's turn 2, and going down the back straightaway. He had an edge over the 6 on the outside line. You can see here he just got a little sideways. I think the 9 of Stillwell just didn't get stopped and just ran into the back of the 14, and that's what sent him around.
A lot of times we'll see that kind of a stack up at dirt tracks, but usually it's dirt tracks that are very narrow. To your point here, very interesting that we had one car getting into the back of another in the fight for the same line as, wow, Ryan. I understand that he definitely is out there trying to prove something, but that just seemed a little too aggressive for this early on. Not only did he shove the 017 into the corner, but then it's almost like he couldn't get that car to even turn. It was almost like it was going to spin out on him, and up into Brian Hogue he goes.
Yeah, it almost looked like he lost the back end, though. We rode on board with him under that last replay, and he just lost the back end of the car and didn't look like he was able to even have a chance to slow down enough time. That's unfortunate for Stillwell, because he came into this race not in the fight for the championship, but he had something to prove, and that's doubly so for Brian Hogue. He was the pole sitter, to your point, and he was one of the drivers trying to run down Wesley. So that opens the door for the 88, as he's going to line up on the inside line on the second row. So it's wide open for the 88 at this point. It's still a long race to go. We're still working lap 2. For those not familiar with dirt track racing, the pace laps under yellow are not counted towards the end of the race, so every lap will be ran under green. We're about ready to set them up again for our first restart of the night. Brian James and Ethan Sprague will be our top 2. Seth, what are we going to see after this? Do you think they're going to try to tame it down, or do you think we're going to see more of the same?
Well, I don't think if you're Brian Hogue or Steve Robbins that you can calm it down. You got track position you got to pick up, because as you just alluded to, the ball is now in the court of one Grant Wesley. We're 3 wide again. That's Green on the bottom. I think that's Robbins in the middle, so risky move there for the 073.
It's a move that he has to make in order to get anywhere close to being able into the championship. He's trying his hardest to get there, but he's got the position done on green, does the 073.
And now as he's going to move up to the 5th position and set his sights on the 41 of Scott Monksgaard, new number there for Scott. We're used to seeing him in a bright yellow 44, but in the 41 here tonight as he's trying to get by Ethan Sprague. Look at Grant Wesley. He realizes the 073 is coming. He's now immediately putting the pressure on Brian James for the top position.
And he's trying to get to the inside line, not do what happened earlier between Stillwell and Hogue. He's trying to get to the inside. Look at the room that he's opened up on the inside line. That's just how wide the track is. There was a good space for 3 or more cars to fit in between them. Now to the inside, goes extremely deep, washes up the racetrack, and now here comes James back on the inside for the crossover.
Like I said, Brian James looking like he could be getting his best finish of the season. Contact there with Wesley, who was on the top side, almost sent him to the wall. Wesley recovers, but look at the spots. He loses back to 2nd, now back to 3rd, and now has to try and get that 3rd spot back as he was in 4th position. And here comes Robbins in the 073.
And he knows that he can smell it. He's got a fast car. He's going to try and get to the inside. The problem is that there are 2 very fast cars in front of him. You got Monksgaard on the inside. You got Wesley on the outside. Where do you go if you're the 073? This track is plenty wide, but The fastest line appears to be right in the middle of the racetrack, right where you see the gray dirt forming. That is where you want to be, and he's putting down some really fast laps. He started towards the back of the pack, now to the inside of Muxgard. Can he get the position, or does Muxgard on the outside line have the run?
And Anthony, what this is telling me is these drivers are racing these cars very hard into the corner, very fast, because if you watch them through the turns, there's about 2.5 grooves down there, down to the inside of the racetrack that they're not using at all.
Absolutely not, and they don't want to have to use that inside line either. The extreme inside line back where the wall is that's kind of the no man's land. That's if you have to avoid an incident in front of you, that's kind of where you go to. It's not very fast. There's a bit of an elevation change throughout turns 1, 2, 3, and 4. So you can kind of see there where Wesley was just at. He put his left front tire on it. There's not a whole lot there, but there is enough to make the car a little unhappy. You also have to slow down a lot when you go that inside line. It is the quicker rate around the racetrack, but when you factor in how slow you have to get the car down, it's not fast at all. As right now, back again battling with James. He's trying to use the inside line as James uses the outside line.
And Wesley's going to edge ahead, at least for the moment, and he actually clears. Wow, what a power move by Grant Wesley. I thought James was going to battle back on the top side, but no. Grant Wesley will go to the point, and I guarantee you that's the last thing Steve Robbins and Brian Hogue wanted to see. I've been kind of crunching the numbers and hope my calculations are correct. For Brian Hogue, based off of the bonus points that he got from that first heat as opposed to the bonus points that Grant Wesley got, he needs to, for Brian Hogue, get out in front, lead the lap, and lead the most laps, and Grant Wesley has to finish in 7th. For Steve Robbins to win the championship, he needs to lead the most laps here tonight and have the 88 finish back in the 10th position. So right now, both those scenarios absolutely not working out.
Not at all, especially because Wesley's leading the race now, and with a commanding lead, he's actually opened up a bit of a gap back to Brian James. It's about a 4-car length gap back to James right now. Right now, James is under fire from Robbins, who's made his way up into 3rd place, put down Ethan Sprague to 4th. So the 073 is on the move. You got someone else on the move. It's Brian Hogue trying to get back up to the front of the field. We saw him in a bit of a fight between himself and Rick Gibson earlier on. Now just trying to figure out a way around the 38 machine.
Yeah, Rick Gibson, the defending winner of this race from earlier on this season, of course, with a 15-race schedule, and not a whole lot of dirt tracks out there to choose from. A lot of different dirt tracks hosted 2 races this season. And by the way, as well, just an update, Rick Gibson did use a fast repair under our only yellow of the evening, so he does not have a fast repair available to him should he be involved in a later incident. Everybody else still has a fast repair to fall back on.
That's good news for the drivers that were involved in the earlier incident. Ryan Stillwell, he was one of the drivers that we thought might have used a fast repair, given the fact that he made some pretty heavy contact with the outside wall after contact with Hogue. Brian Hogue, another one of those drivers we thought might use a fast repair, actually has not either. So you have the opportunity to have a fast repair in the books. Although you can see it's kind of affected his speed. He's not really able to get up with these guys, or maybe he's doing this by design. Maybe he's trying to kind of fall back, get out of the hornet's nest, because there is a big one in front of him. You've got Green, Muxgard, Gibson, Sprague, all within camera shot, and that is a huge hornet's nest that able to get involved in Rick Gibson almost to the inside, or make contact with the 41.
By the way, Steve Robbins just made his way around Brian James for 2nd, and he and Grant Wesley are running identical lap times. So right now, they're both running an equal pace, which is not what Steve Robbins wants. He wants to be closing in on that 88 machine. And interesting too, I mentioned that these drivers earlier on this season were at Knoxville. Grant Wesley did not finish well in that event. He finished in 9th place. Brian Hogue finished 2nd, and Steve Robbins finished 3rd. So I have to wonder, if he looked back at his last performance here at Knoxville earlier on this season, what the mentality was, and if there was a little bit of worry in the mind of the driver of the 88 coming into this being the season finale.
It might have played some mind games, knowing that Wesley would have to be, he would have to be a little bit better than everyone else. So far, he's kind of showing that he is, because he's opened up a huge gap, a 1.5 second gap back to Robbins. So whatever homework he did is paying off. and I don't think we've ever seen a driver have this much of an advantage late in the race so far this season. Obviously, it's the first race I've seen so far this season, but Seth, I think you've been with this series a little bit longer. Is this something that we normally see out of Wesley, where he opens up these big leads in the second half of the race? Because we're coming up to about halfway.
Oh, when Wesley finds something that works for him, oh yeah, as soon as he gets out in front, he opens up the distance. But I'm not certain how long he's going to maintain it. I've been keeping my eye on the defending winner here at Knoxville, Rick Gibson. Remember, he got involved in the wreck back on lap 2, came down and took on a faster pair, so he started shotgun on the restart in 12th place. It's only taken him 19 laps to work his way up to 4th, and he's now looking for 2 birds with 1 stone to move up to 2nd place. That 38 is flying.
He had to start at the back of the pack after his heat race because there was contact in his heat race that he had to account for. So now on his way back towards the front of the field, he's actually now put the 6th of James down. And now he sets his sights on Steve Robbins. Oh, to the outside, extreme outside goes Rick Gibson, but now tries to cross over this contact with James, and that could have ended in disaster.
Boy, a lot of times it's all about timing, and that time maybe misjudged it a little too late, did Rick Gibson. That's lost in momentum. He just had, I believe that was Ethan Sprague in his back bumper, and then Sprague got loose, and he's going to drop to the rear. Now he's going to almost get contact, but I think that was Scott Musgard. We got a flipper. It is Ethan Sprague in the 017.
And that's going to be our caution. We saw it live happen. It was contact going down the front straightaway that caused this crash to bring out our second yellow of the night just past halfway.
There's always an action and a reaction at dirt tracks, and we can put this all the way back to that crossover move that Rick Gibson tried to put on Brian James. It then checked him up into Ethan Sprague and then led to the contact further on back in the pack.
We're watching it now. Here's where it all started. There's some contact. The 07 went up, made contact with the outside retaining wall, then 3 wide between himself, the 41 and the 30, and then it was just downhill from there, flipping, going into turn 1 and thankfully landing on his wheels. But that is why we are under yellow for the second time tonight, and I gotta say, that could have been much worse than it was. It wasn't very, don't get me wrong, that was a pretty bad crash. But when you consider how many cars could have been involved, and he could have actually rode up the wall and flipped out of the arena, that could have been disastrous for the 017.
We're now more than halfway through this main event, and I guarantee you there's one driver in the field that didn't want to see the yellow, and another driver that did. Brant Wesley falls into the category of the driver that did not want to see that caution flag come out because he was in a different zip code. Now everybody's on his front doorstep knocking on the door. The guy that wanted to see that caution, I guarantee you, is Rick Gibson in that 38 because even in traffic, he was running lap times a 10th to a 10th and a half quicker than the top 3. So that 38 car now has the top 3 right within striking distance. We'll see what he can do here on this restart. But another thing we're going to have to keep an eye on here too, Anthony, 26 laps of green flag racing. The track is definitely worn in. The options are starting to go away for these drivers. Plus the fact that now these drivers are going to have to get back into a rhythm again. We talked to them a lot of times in post-race interviews about when they end up having multiple cautions in the course of a main event. And they say it does take them about a lap or 2 to actually get back into their rhythm again. So it's whoever finds their footing the quickest, I guess.
And we're about to find out who gets that footing back quickest. Is now Wesley will rocket away on the restart, but that's kind of synonymous with every other race car driver that you talk to. They get into a rhythm and then something will happen and it breaks the rhythm, and then you have to figure out to get it back because your brain just goes into muscle memory mode at that point. You kind of just forget that you're doing it, but you're doing it just unconsciously, running lap after lap, hitting your marks. You know where your marks are. You know how fast you can get your car in there. You know exactly, oh, we got a yellow to come out again. So the rhythm obviously didn't happen for somebody, and that's Mugscard. It's in the wall now.
I saw some contact back there, I thought, with the 9 of Ryan Stillwell. It might have been the 41 that he made contact with.
We're going to see. It was him. Stillwell did get involved in this one. We'll take a quick look and see what happened here. Coming onto the front straightaway, and yeah, just Stillwell and Mugscard. And Mugscard never really got off the wall and went up and around and on his roof going into turn 1. So that is why we are under yellow again. Another car flipping in similar fashion to what we saw just a caution to go.
Yeah, Monksguard, a wild ride there. Not only rides the outside wall, but then flips over on his roof. And to me, it almost kind of looked like a case of Ryan Stillwell thought he was clear, but wasn't quite. I gotta wonder just how many blind spots these drivers have in the big block modifieds, because, just the way that they're built, I would assume there's quite a number of blind spot areas where you're not necessarily certain if there is a car to your outside or inside.
Yeah, especially on the right side of the car. You can maybe see on the left side okay. Especially if you got a car right underneath you, that might be a case where you can possibly see that. But if you have a car to your outside, good luck. Especially, it's hard to tell, especially if it's in that blind spot where you normally have a blind spot in your car at home. If you have a mirror, these drivers don't have mirrors, so it's even harder to see it to the outside line. And that was just, I think, a case of Stillwell not really knowing where he was on the racetrack. And tough break for both Stillwell and Monksguard, as I think that Monksguard is on pit road at the moment. So too is Stillwell. Not sure if they're trying to get damage repaired or if they're just sitting on pit road waiting to retire from the races. The damage might be a little too much for them. I think, though, that Stillwell and Monksguard had a fast repair available to them. I don't know why if they haven't used it, or maybe they had to had something a little bit more terminal that they had to have fixed.
Yeah, I'm with you in the camp of the confused, because neither one of these drivers, to my knowledge, had used their fast repairs. Maybe they just didn't remember to put it on when they went to pit lane. For Monksguard, he had to teleport to pit road, so that might be why he's on there a little bit longer. But I'm a little confused about the extended stay for Ryan Stillwell. As the green flag back in the air, and it was frozen field caution when the yellow came out. Rick Gibson had edged Steve Robbins for second place, so now he's alongside of Grant Wesley for the race lead on this restart.
There was a contact back between Sean Green and a couple others. The 6 of Sprague, or make that James, was involved, and I believe the 30 of Pullen was also involved. There was about 3 wide racing going down the back straightaway, almost 4 wide now. They are 4 wide going through turn 2, and that could have ended in disaster, but thankfully the track's wide enough to accommodate all of them.
Absolutely is, even though these drivers still finding a way to make it look like there's not a lot of room. Almost some side banging there in that 4 wide situation, as Ethan Sprague, of course, now I believe is in the camp of those that do not have a fast repair left, utilized it here under this latest yellow. And Rick Gibson, he's determined to make that inside line work. Grant Wesley going maybe the highest we've seen a driver go on the track all night long. That includes in the heat races.
He's trying to find the grip. We mentioned it earlier in the program where you start to have that line in the middle of the racetrack. The drivers call it the blue line, and when it starts to form, that's when all the grip kind of goes away, and you're trying to struggle for grip. And now we're seeing the 2 extremes, the 2 extreme on the inside and the extreme on the outside line, because that's where the grip is. And right now, if you are Gibson, you've committed, and so far it's working out for you. You're keeping the pace. In fact, he's going to get the lead coming out of turn 4.
But a move by Gibson, and then throws the block on Grant Wesley going into turn 1. So a beautiful pass by Rick Gibson. Now he goes to the point, and this changes things up a little bit in terms of the championship, because now with Grant Wesley not being out in front, he can't reap in the bonus points for winning this race. I believe it's 3 bonus points if you end up winning the main event. It now falls back into the clutches of, oh, guess who? Steve Robbins and Brian Hogue. Right now, your 3 championship competitors, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th.
And that is intense battling that we're seeing between these guys for this championship fight. Wesley's just holding on, hoping that he can get at least a top 5. That's really all he has to do is get a top 5, aside from Hogue not winning the race. And for Robbins, it's a little bit more extreme. But he's got to have something magical happen if Robbins is going to have to win this championship. But Rick Gibson started at the back of the pack. You wouldn't know it. Now he's leading the race on a charge, and he's actually trying to open up a gap between himself and the 88 of Wesley.
Well, don't quote me on this, because I'm not 100% certain, but Wesley may have locked up the bonus point for most laps led here this evening. I don't know if Gibson leads from here to the checkered flag, if he can top that or not. So if Grant Wesley did indeed get that bonus point, that's going to make things a little bit easier for him as well. You talked about just the needing to finish in the top 5. I think that hit the nail right on the head. Whether Robbins or Hogue wins here tonight, if Wesley has sniped that bonus point for most laps led, all he has to do is finish in the top 5, and he's the champ.
He's doing it pretty well right now, running very solidly in the 2nd place position. Rick Gibbs is doing kind of what Grant did earlier on in the race and pulling out an advantage. Steve Robbins really hasn't been able to get around Wesley. trying to figure out where his car is best at. We've seen Wesley actually migrate to the inside line after being on the extreme outside. Hogue is now trying to figure out where his car works best, and he's running the extreme outside line in the number 14 machine. And Travis Pullen, who makes up the top 5 now, we haven't really talked much about him other than earlier on in the race where he was in a bit of a 2 and 3 wide battle and could have ended very poorly. He's now running in 5th place, got a really fast car. We might see him get this top 5.
And Travis only making his 2nd start on the season, made his debut with an 11th place finish last week at Fairbury. So definitely a solid outing for him here tonight as he's in a pretty good battle with Brian Hogue. Those two only about 3 car length separation. Interesting fact too, I was looking back, I wonder just how much of a quick study Rick Gibson was from the last Knoxville race to this one, because last time these guys were here, Grant Wesley and Brian Hogue led the most laps with 17 apiece. Rick Gibson went on to win the race, but he only led 2 laps, the final 2.
That is a bit of history that we're going to have to consider in this race. And right now he's doing well more than 2 laps led in the race. He's actually led quite a few of them so far. Definitely knows how to get around Knoxville, to your point. He is putting down these laps better than anyone we've seen so far tonight. Although Wesley, like I said earlier, he's done his homework. He's basically mirroring everything that Gibson's doing and doing it just about as well as the 38 machine. Although now he switches up his line to the outside line to try and find any bit of grip that he can to get a run down under the 38. Although that might have not been such a good line to take because he's actually lost ground to the 38.
Now it comes down to the question in terms of wins, who wants it more? If Grant Wesley were to win here tonight, he would be the most winningest driver this season with 5 victories. If Rick Gibson wins here tonight, it would be a 3-way tie for most wins, 4 wins apiece between himself, Wesley, and Ryan Stillwell.
And that is, when you can separate all those drivers out and you look at their stat sheet, it's amazing what these drivers have been able to do as far as wins and losses. Their win-loss ratio is amazing. Although I think Wesley's got the best win-loss ratio out of everybody, given the fact that his average finish was a bit higher than these other drivers were. But knowing that, you think that Wesley, and I know that Wesley wants to win this race to be king of the mountain, but Rick Gibson, if he comes in and gets this win, then when you have 3 drivers sharing the most wins throughout the season, you've got your trifecta of winningest drivers. That's kind of like a podium of royalty in this series, I feel, and they'd be kind of glad to share the podium, I feel.
Well, not only that, but it also kind of shows the competition level here in the series. It's not a one-dog show where one guy goes out and dominates week after week. It's the sharing of victory lane here. I mean, if you consider that we've had the opportunity here, if Gibson closes this out, 3 drivers that have gone to victory lane in 12 of the 15 races, that just shows you right there that, you don't really know who the champion's going to be until they end up getting to the season finale and that final checkered flag waves.
And the consistency that we talked about all season long, that is one of the things that has come down to what we have now for the championship battle. Right now, Wesley is poised to take the championship if he can be clean the next couple of laps. And that just is a testament. You mentioned we're going to split them 3 drivers with the same amount of wins this season, but to our point, very different championship looks. 2 laps to go now for Rick Gibson. I think he might go back-to-back at Knoxville.
I think you might be right, looking for win number 4 on the season. Folks, don't go anywhere after this. It's going to be Grant Wesley versus Steve Robbins Part 2. Only 5 points separate those two. In the late model race will be coming up right after this, but right now, Rick Gibson's got a checkered flag to collect.
Has been an interesting race for him. Started at the back of the pack, had to wake his way all the way to the front. Now finds himself coming out of turn 4 for the final time. Rick Gibson is going to take the first race win tonight, and he is on fire.
And let's not forget, you pointed it out, had trouble back in his qualifying heat and started shotgun on the field tonight, then got involved in an incident on the second lap, took on the faster pair and fell to the back again. So it's been an up and down night there for Rick Gibson.
A bit of a slinky through the field he's been all race long, but gets a win done here in our first race, the 358 modifieds. And you gotta admit, that was a show that he just put on. It wasn't just a drive, it was a show, proving that he knows this track well enough that it doesn't matter where he starts in the field, he can come through and pull off a win, and he's going to line up with some pretty big names on the front row. You've got on the podium, you've got Gibson, Wesley will finish second, and with that, he will take the championship here in the 358s. And then you have Steve Robbins, who a third place on a podium, but you know that he wanted this race to go a little bit different than it had happened for him, but still a good showing for that 073 team.
And how about Grant Wesley? Just perseverance here this season. 4 trips to victory lane, but on the flip side, 3 finishes outside of the top 10. So there had to be a couple of comeback moments for him to get himself back into that championship competition, but he closes out the deal here tonight. Well deserved. Now the question here for Grant Wesley is, can he go 2 for 2 here this weekend at Knoxville in terms of championships? I mean, the pressure's off in one regard, but it's just picking back up in another.
Indeed it is, and we're gonna have to wait and see what happens on our next race that we go to. Can he continue this good luck, or not really good luck, but can he continue this consistent drive and maybe take that championship as well? That's questions for later. Right now, we have questions for some of these drivers. We're looking through our list here. We're gonna try and see if we can get an interview with our top 3 here. Looking for Steve Robbins. I see him down here looking around for him.
User was moved to your channel.
There he is. Steve, this is Anthony and Seth in the Flatout Racing Network booth. You got us.
Yes, I do.
That was a pretty good race that you had going on there. You kind of started about midway through the pack and worked your way up to a 3rd place finish. What was the track conditions like tonight, and how did your car feel?
The car felt pretty good. Track conditions were okay. I would have liked it a little bit tackier, but it worked out fine. The bottom was a little slick, but it seemed to be a little faster, but I couldn't hold it down there, so I tried chasing Grant down on the top, and he's just one hard guy to catch.
We talked about the spaciousness of Knoxville. I mean, we can visibly see that you guys have anywhere from 6 to 7 lanes available. We noticed that with the speed you guys were carrying, pretty much those 2 bottom lines weren't really used that much, but just how much searching took place and how early on was it with how spacious this track really is?
Well, I like the bottom. I started out on the bottom, and that's where I made most of my moves, is to the front, is on the bottom. But as the race went on, I started searching the middle a little bit, and that was pretty decent. But if you paid any attention, I would take the high side, and then I would chop across the track and come down out of the corners, and that seemed the fastest. But I couldn't get going. You know, it slowed me down towards the end, so...
Yeah, the race certainly seemed to have its different advances throughout the night, but you did end up getting our 3rd place, and I gotta say, this sets you up with some pretty good momentum going into the late model race later on. What are your ideas for that race, and do you think you can carry on the same momentum going into the next race?
I sure hope so. I'm 5 points behind Grant, and I think I need to pull out a win to beat him there too.
Should make for some epic racing later on tonight, and don't go anywhere for those viewers. We have another big battle in the championship for our late model race, but congratulations on your 3rd place here tonight, the season finale for the 358s. And before we let you go, we're going to let you have the floor for some sponsors and some shout outs.
Thanks, guys. Big shout out to RTG for putting on these races. You guys for broadcasting when you do. And all the admins, Grant, Brian, all those guys that put on this show. Great racing with these guys, and I can't wait for next season.
Well, that is Steve Robbins. Finishes 3rd place tonight in our 358s, but we look to see him maybe pull out a win in the late model race later on. Have a good rest of your night, and not really have a good rest of your night, but get ready for the next race, and we hope to see you again.
Okay, thanks, guys.
User was moved out of your channel.
And now we're going to get our champion in this series and our 2nd place finisher, Grant Wesley.
User was moved to your channel.
Hey, Grant, it's Anthony and Seth in the Flatout Racing Network booth. You got us?
Oh, yeah, I got you. What's up?
Well, that was one heck of a drive that you pulled off. You ended up getting to the lead and kind of pulling out of a gap, and then that caution came out and slinking everyone back together, and then it was kind of a showdown between you and Gibson for the end of the race. How was your car handling all night, and what was the track conditions like most of the night?
The car was pretty good. The track, it kind of changed its state. It's kind of slow tonight. We have a little bit smaller car count than what we're used to. So the track held moisture really well. The start of the race, I was running the bottom. I was running the middle of 1 and 2 and bottom and 3 and 4, and that was working really great. and I ran pretty much the first half like that, and then we had that caution. I kind of got off easy street there. I had a little gap and bunched us all back up. And yeah, Rick Gibson, man, he's tough. He's tough anywhere you go. And I seen he was behind me, and I thought it was late enough in the race. I thought maybe that top side would be a little stronger than it was. I went up top, and I felt there was a pretty heavy cushion right in the center, and I liked the way it felt, but Rick really had that bottom rolling really well. So, I seen he was making that work, so I moved down, trying to kind of do a mixture of bottom side 3 and 4, top side 1 and 2, and tried to top side on both ends. I tried just about everything I knew to do, and I just couldn't touch him. Congratulations to Rick Gibson on a good win there.
Well, Grant, we saw in your heat race, you were able to go out there, get some bonus points, making your job a little bit easier here for this main event. But, tonight's kind of almost like a Disney movie. There's always going to be a part 2. I mean, tonight we end up seeing you as well as Steve Robbins and Brian Hogue battle for this championship, but it's even closer when you guys climb into the late models later on. It's only 5-point separation between you and Steve Robbins. So that battle into a part 2, if you will. What were you able to learn here tonight with the modifieds that you can then apply with the late models, or is it an entirely different thing and you're kind of going in with an entirely different strategy?
Yeah, old Steve Robbins, man, he's always in the points battle. It seems like he's a really great driver, and Brian Hogue both. Yeah, I'd say if there's anything that I learned from this race was it's definitely helpful to get a top 3 there in the heats because those points translate, and it really sucks when you get behind before you even get to the feature. So yeah, like you said, the points are tighter for the late models. I think there's like a 5-point split between us. So if I have a bad race and he wins his heat, we'll be could potentially be tied up going into the main. So I definitely don't want that to happen. Tension's going to be high, and I'm going to try to get a good finish in the heat right out of the gate. And the late models, they got a new tire model that iRacing just released. Everybody just did the update. I think a few guys may have a couple nights experience on it, but I think most of us haven't ran it at all. So it's going to be a whole new ball game. I was able to make a few laps with it a couple days ago, and the car is a lot tighter. It's sort of a different ball game from the way it was before. Before, the cars seemed to skate around quite a bit, and now you're going to see a lot of tight race cars. So I was told that to go fast with them, you got to keep the car pointed straight. So we'll see what happens.
Well, we look forward to seeing you in the late models later on, and congratulations on your championship drive here tonight in the 358s. Winning a championship always has to feel good, and I'm sure this one feels just as well. So congratulations on a fantastic drive tonight to get your championship. But before we let you go and get ready for the late model race, we'd like to open the floor for you for some sponsors and shout-outs.
Yeah, I'm completely stoked to pick up another championship here at RTG. This is one of the greatest places to race, greatest people, and some awesome competition. So, I guess first I want to do a plug real quick for next season. This is obviously our final race. We are having a end of season meeting April 23rd. That's next Friday. Anyone that's looking to join our league, just jump in TeamSpeak, get a hold of me on Facebook, and we're going to vote on a bunch of changes for next season, kind of keep it fresh for everybody and keep everyone happy. So, and then our first race for season 6 is May 7th. So yeah, I'd like to thank you guys, Flatout Racing Network. Man, you guys are awesome up in the broadcast booth. I'd like to thank the owners here at RTG for giving us such a great place to race. My fellow admins, Brian Hogue and Brian Ordo. Brian Ordo had to miss tonight. We miss him. I'd like to thank all my friends and family that watch me. It's pretty fun that they get to watch me on YouTube. Thanks to my mom and dad. My little nieces, Maya and Chloe, they get into it, so that's pretty cool. My girlfriend, Brittany, she watches all the time. And then my teammates at XFM.
Again, that is Grant Wesley, second place in the 358s, but championship of the 358s. And we look forward to seeing you in the late model race. Until then, we'll see you then.
Thank you, guys.
User was moved out
And
of
now
your
we'll get our
channel.
winner of our 358 race into the booth. That'll be Rick Gibson, driver of the 38.
User was moved to your channel.
Hey, Rick, it's Anthony and Seth in the Flatout Racing Network booth. You got us.
Yeah, I got you guys. How you guys doing?
Well, doing pretty well, but probably you're doing a little bit better. You had to pull off quite a drive in order to get this win tonight, starting at the back of the pack and finding yourself up in the front at the end of the race. How did you do it? What did you have to do in order to do it?
Oh man, I don't know. After that heat race, even during warm-ups, I was kind of just placing kind of near the back, and I really didn't know what to do, so I figured I'd just get out there and see what happened to the track. And 50 laps, a lot of track change goes through there, so just figured I'd try and run and just see if I couldn't make anything happen.
Well, Rick, we were going over the fact that you guys had been here at Knoxville earlier on in the season, your second trip to this dirt track here, and you led only 2 laps when you picked up the victory at Knoxville last time. The most important 2, the last 2. Was there anything from that race that you were able to apply here tonight, or did the track kind of feel like it was entirely different?
I want to say it was entirely different. If I think last time Grant, he was up there leading, and I think he got up into the wall. So I know we were running up high, and then I don't know, for some reason I just decided to try down low and started passing guys. So I just figured I'd kind of stick with that, and just noticed the top side was just getting too long around. So I think it was just completely flip-flop from last time.
Well, we did see a lot of moving around the track trying to figure out where to go, and I'm sure the track conditions changed quite a bit, but I believe that you're also racing in the late model series coming up, so you think we're going to see lightning strike twice. What are you looking forward to going into the next race, and see if you can pull off a double header tonight?
Oh, that'd be awesome. No, you gotta start up front during this main. Well, I guess you really don't have to, but it's always good to start up there. But even racing with Grant and Steve, they're always really tough to beat. So, I mean, you can never count them out. So, just trying to get a good start in the main and then go from there. But hopefully it'll be a good track like how we had. And, yeah, we'll see if we can't make anything happen.
Well, that is Rick Gibson, your winner in our 358 main event tonight. We look forward to seeing what you can do in the late models. So once again, congratulations on your win here tonight. And before we let you go, we're going to let you do some sponsors, some shout-outs.
Yeah, I appreciate that, guys. Well, I want to say congrats to Grant and Steve and Hogue for their championship runs. I missed a couple races, so that kind of put me out of it, but it's always fun to run here at RTG, and I'd like to thank them for putting this on. 15 race weeks, it can be pretty daunting, so for them to keep up with it and put in the time and effort to allow us to come out here and have fun, which is most important. So I really appreciate those guys. And you guys at Flatout Racing Network, you guys have covered this series before, and you guys do a fantastic job. So it's always great to hear you guys and watch the broadcasts and everything like that. And I guess all the guys at Hari Sports and Gary Peck and just everybody who helps me out and just comes out and runs and have fun.
Once again, that is Rick Gibson, winner of our 358 main event tonight. Again, we look forward to seeing you in the next race. Until then, we'll see you then.
Yeah, appreciate it, guys. Thanks.
User was moved out of your channel.
Well, Seth, we're one race down, one more series to go, and that means we got one more championship to settle tonight. What are your takeaways from the 358s, and what do you expect us to see when we get into the late models?
Well, I mean, certainly it looks like here tonight, with how spacious Knoxville is, you can make passes and work your way from the back to the front. Rick Gibson, if anybody, proved that here tonight. The one thing that I'm going to be a little bit interested in with some of the precursors for the late model cars, if you look back at their previous race earlier on this season at Knoxville, only 2 drivers led laps in that race. It was the 2 drivers that won the heat races. So it almost makes me wonder if track position is going to be even more important in the late model race. But Grant Wesley brought up the fact there is a new tire model for these late model machines here now from last week into this week. So now it's going to come down to which drivers made the best adjustment to that new tire model. That could throw a bit of an X factor into this.
And it's going to be fun to watch once we get into that race. Don't go anywhere, folks. We've got plenty more racing to come tonight. We're going to get into the late models here at Knoxville, and we're going to see just how much these drivers are going to put on a show for our second round of racing. And again, the points battle is tight there as well. We'll see you there. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this quick intermission. Welcome back to Knoxville, everyone. We're getting ready for our second race of the evening, or our second set of races for the evening here at Knoxville Raceway. For our bigger class, the big fast cars coming up shortly, the Dirt Pro late models, and it's going to be another championship battle in the balance here for our main event tonight. My name is Anthony McCurry. Alongside of me is Seth Cole. And if you're just joining us, you missed quite a heated battle for our championship at the 358s that came down to a couple of second half race cautions. I'll get the English out eventually. And kind of set up the rest of the race for our winner in that race, which would be Rick Gibson. But Grant Wesley took the championship. Now, Seth, we got another championship on the line, and it again involves Grant Wesley.
Yeah, it's kind of like the sequel, if you will. Grant Wesley versus Steve Robin Part 2. The only thing is, though, that championship that Grant Wesley picked up just moments ago with the modifieds, maybe a little bit easier of a task than what he's got here tonight. Only 5-point separation between himself and Steve Robbins. And folks, just to kind of put it in translation how close that is, Steve Robbins, if he wins a heat here tonight and Grant Wesley does not finish in the top 3 in his heat, they're tied for the points lead going into the main event race.
And that would be a matter of just who finishes in front of the other, and that could be quite interesting to watch. As it stands, Steve Robbins is going to be in our first heat tonight. You can see him lining up back there on the outside of the second row. So Steve Robbins will be trying to get up to the front of the field as quickly as he possibly can. Rick Gibson, our winner from earlier on in our first main event of the evening, will line up first for this first heat race. So, Seth, you think that he's going to take the momentum from the previous main event into these heats? And what are you thinking that we're going to see out of this 38 machine?
Well, he's certainly got momentum. There's no doubt about that. He finished 4th the first time the late models were here at Knoxville. But, there's a couple of things that come into play, as I mentioned at the end of our previous broadcast here when the late model race, when the modified race came to a close. Number one is the fact that with track position here tonight, I think that's going to be the most important thing, because we ended up having our 2 heat winners back in the first race at Knoxville lead all 45 laps. 22 were led by Grant Wesley, 23 were led by Scott Schroyer. Gibson, if he can qualify on the pole here for the main event, no doubt in my mind, he can keep it up there at the front. The other thing as well, as we were told, there is a new tire model for these late model cars, so there's going to be a little bit of adaptation for these drivers. It's not going to feel the same way that it did earlier on in the season when they were here at this dirt track, so we're going to have to see how they make that adjustment. Of course, the driver that makes that quickest adjustment is probably going to be the one who's going to win this race.
And the track conditions, we tell in week in and week out where the track conditions change over time. The inside line and the outside line become the preferred lines as the middle line kind of goes away, the blue line that these drivers call it. So we'll have to see how the track progresses overnight. We are getting set to get this first heat underway. Rick Gibson, Sean Kerrigan going to get us underway. 8 laps around Knoxville. We're underway.
And it's kind of like Steve Robbins has to throw down the gauntlet here for Grant Wesley in the upcoming second heat. Steve Robbins, talk about momentum. He's won the last 2 races this season and 3 of the last 5. So he's got momentum on his side for sure. We'll see if it follows up here tonight in this heat race and, of course, in the main event of the finale.
He's already gotten a position from Sean Kerrigan, who's fallen backwards. Now sets his sights on Ethan Sprague, who is now in a heated battle with Rick Gibson for the lead of this race. And I got to say, they're running 2 completely different lines. It looks like the 017 kind of running a little bit of a higher line, throwing the car in a little bit further. Whoa, a little bit of a bobble going into turn 1, but all's fair.
Stillwell and Sean Kerrigan in that 4th position battle. Behind them, you've got Trevor Guru, Travis Poulin, and Lance Monksgaard. Monksgaard making only his 3rd start on the season in that 83.
And he's having a very good one right now, a little bit further back, but there's a battle right now between these drivers up front. Kerrigan, Guru, and Poulin. We've seen at least Kerrigan and Poulin get a little bit close together in our last races. And now Kerrigan falls backwards as he got a wicked loose coming out of one of those turns.
That thing was flat sideways. Nice job of recovering, but lost all the momentum as a result. And ooh, look at this. Battle for the lead. Ethan Sprague has found a half lane lower on Gibson, pulled alongside, but couldn't quite get him this time. If these 2 guys get to racing, it could bring Steve Robbins and Ryan Stillwell into the picture.
It It could indeed. These drivers in a spirited battle right now. It's only a heat race, but there's a lot on the line if you're someone like Robbins who really needs to have a good amount of bonus points going into the next race or the main event tonight if he wants to be able to be right level with Wesley. But right now, battle for the lead in the first heat as Robbins and Stillwell battle behind them. This is a lot of battles going on the track.
2 laps to go, and if you're Steve Robbins, you're absolutely right, Anthony. He needs at least 1 bonus point. He needs a 3rd place finish at least, because the last thing you want to do is then have Grant Wesley with an opportunity to gain more bonus points. Remember, Wesley was a winner of a heat last time these late models were at Knoxville, so certainly he's got the history of being able to finish well when it comes down to these heats, and it looks like Robbins may have dropped outside the top 3 as we're on the white flag.
We are on the final lap of the race, side by side between Gibson and Sprague coming down to the finish, and it is going to be Gibson eking out Sprague at the line. So, fantastic drive for Gibson as he is going to have the pole position for our main event, and more importantly, he's going to have bragging rights coming out of his main event win in the 358s. How he wins a heat race going into our second main event, and that's going to be some huge momentum going towards him.
And, you know, we were talking about before that green flag flew for the first heat, the possibility of Wesley not getting any bonus points and Robbins winning his heat. Now we got to kind of flip the script. What if Wesley wins his heat and Robbins misses out on any bonus points? There could be a 10-point deficit from Wesley back to Robbins. And remember, with the only, I believe, 15 drivers in tonight's field, that's going to make the task a little bit tougher for the 073. So now he's in the infield watching, and he's got to hope Grant Wesley finishes outside the top 3.
And he has got a long wait to go for these drivers. There's going to be another 8-lap heat race for them. Todd Mallory's going to line up on the front row next to Sean Green for this second heat. And then Grant Wesley is going to be 4th place on that outside line. Will the 88 machine be? He is going to have some pretty big momentum coming into this race. After all, he needs this win in order to have he doesn't need this win, but you know he'd like to have this win in order to get some momentum on his way. He is the points leader in this race. That does not mean he's guaranteed the championship, so he's got to keep his nose clean throughout this heat race if he wants to have a good starting position and, more importantly, some more bonus points.
Well, you know, and also, as we talked back during the modifieds race, the bragging rights in terms of the number of wins you can rack up. Well, Steve Robbins right now leads that category with 4 victories, Grant Wesley with 3, so you know that Grant would love to be able to find victory lane here tonight and tie Steve Robbins for most wins this season, all while wrapping up his 2nd championship of the night.
And we're going to see if he can go for the race sweep, as it were, getting both championships. Didn't win the last main event, but did win the championship. Can he do it again? We'll have to wait after this heat race. It all depends on how this heat race goes. We'll see just what the 88's got. Green flags in the air. Mallory gets us underway and already ducks to the extreme inside line. Gets up on the dirt mountain right in front of Wesley. He's going to have a little bit of a bobble up into the wall, and they're trying to hold it behind them.
That was Zane Walters, I think, that got up into the fence there in the 31 in reaction to Mallory. And you talked about the elevation changes there from the inside leading to the outside of the track there, Anthony. I think Todd Mallory just gave us a lesson in where that elevation change take place.
And that's about where you can push your car to. That's why they don't use the extreme inside unless they absolutely need to. Todd Mallory gets out of it pretty much unscathed, though. He is still 2nd place, although now here comes Wesley to the inside, trying to put the 222 back behind him. Now slides up. That's going to be Brian Hogan, the 14, trying to put the 220 back to 4th.
Now for Grant Wesley, obviously he'd love to be able to pick up a heat win here, start on the outside of the front row, but he's got to also manage the points. Right now, he would get 3 bonus points for finishing 2nd in this heat race. That would give him a 3-point advantage so far coming into tonight over Steve Robbins. Translate that to the 5 points he already had, so 8 points would be the separation between those two when they start the 50-lap main event.
And that is a good bit of points that he's going to have advantage over. That means if it's going to come down to it, Wesley, all he has to do is really finish in the top 5. It was kind of a similar situation to the last main event where all he had to really do was finish top 5, and he was almost guaranteed the win, or the championship at least. This time, it might be the same scenario where he just has to have a consistent run, finish the top 5, and it doesn't matter where your competitor finishes at.
Yeah, you're absolutely right on that, Anthony. If you were to win the race, lead a lap, and lead the most laps, you get 46 bonus points. If you finish in 5th, that's 39 points that you rack up, and that's 7 points difference. So that would have you 1 point to the good if Wesley finishes where he is here for him to be able to win that championship. Minute advantage at most, but nonetheless, enough to be able to hoist that championship trophy at the end of the night. But very impressive here for Scott Monksgaard in the 41 as he now looks back to Grant Wesley in his rearview mirror, but very good run for a former champion.
It has been very clean for this race, also for the 41 machine. Not really anything going on. He did get that first opening lap, a bit of a bobble, but ever since then has not looked back. Although Wesley's got something for him. Can he get to the line? I don't think he's going to get there. It is going to be Monksgaard taking our win in heat number 2, and he will be starting on the outside of the front row for our main event tonight. So we have quite a main event lined up.
And do not rest on Scott Monksgaard in that 41. He finished 2nd in his heat race last season and finished 3rd in the main event. So if you're looking for a dark horse to maybe get up here and shuffle things up with the 2 championship competitors, look no further than our Heat 2 winner.
Not only that, but Ryan Stillwell showed some speed. We might see him with a bit of a challenge for our 2 championship contenders. Brian Hogue also, don't count him out. He was showing some major speed as well. Todd Mallory, before he hit the inside dirt bound, he was also got some speed, and that was all just from Heat 2. So we haven't even talked about the Heat 1 drivers.
And it looks like I said 15 drivers were going to be taking the green flag. 1 driver did not take part in that second heat, so we may be down to only 14 drivers in this field. Robert Sire, or who we affectionately call Pumpkin here in the community, he did come into the server, but he did not get onto the track. We'll see if maybe he does get on the track here for the main event. So we could be looking at a maximum of 14 drivers that take the green flag. Still keeps the hope alive for Steve Robbins of having Grant Wesley lose enough positions and allow Robbins to be able to gain enough points to take this championship. But certainly, as we just documented, with Wesley getting those 3 bonus points, that gives him a little bit more of a cushion here for this 50-lapper.
And he's one of the fastest drivers in our warm-up practice session at the moment. He's topped the charts so far. Ryan Stillwell, 2nd place right now, and Ethan Sprague will get 3rd place on the charts at the moment. This is just a warm-up session. This isn't going to be very indicative of the race. Not necessarily means anything, but that does say that Wesley's got some speed, and we saw it in the heat race earlier on where he did have a lot of speed, was able to get to the back end of Monksgaard and almost take it to make it a side-by-side battle at the end of the race. That was only an 8-lap heat race. We've still got a main event to go, and if we saw anything like we saw in the last heat race, we're guaranteed a couple of contact incidences to happen, possibly some yellows. That's going to shake up the field, and we saw that Wesley had a huge lead eliminated because of a caution. What is the bit of a monkey wrench you throw out the roulette wheel of Knoxville? What do you think it'll deal these drivers tonight?
Well, I mean, certainly I think we could end up seeing a couple more yellows in the late model race than we saw in the modified race. One of the main reasons being the modifieds are like big bricks. You can use them to make contact. They're easier to save. These late models are a lot faster, they're lower to the ground, and they actually have a much larger skew when they go into the corners with said speed that they carry in. So I think that in terms of making moves on somebody here tonight, this is a very spacious racetrack. It may come down to slide jobs. And we saw, Anthony, back in the modified race, the inability to be able to gauge how much space you have in making a crossover move or a slide job. I think that could be a case here tonight as well. So these drivers are going to have to be very careful with how much space they have available to them, especially our championship competitors in Steve Robbins and Grant Wesley, because as I said, I don't know if necessarily we're going to have a Rick Gibson story of a driver working from the back to the front in this one, just based on the fact that last time we were at Knoxville, it was the only 2 drivers on the front row that led all the laps.
And so far tonight, the only driver to make a comeback charge was Rick Gibson, like you said. So to your point, absolutely, I don't think it's going to be the case tonight because no one really had a bobble in the heat races that was a fast driver. The only one that we saw that had a bobble was Rick Gibson in our 358s. Tonight, it's going to be about consistency. The top drivers are starting towards the front. You've got Rick Gibson. He won our first heat race. Scott Monksgaard, he was the fastest in our second heat, although he wasn't quite as fast as Grant Wesley. And you notice that Wesley was catching up to him at the end of the race. That's not to say that Monksgaard's not fast. He could possibly be one of the fastest drivers on the racetrack. Given the way that the trends are, this race will develop over time. It really depends on where your car is comfortable running. The inside line or the outside line will come in later in the race. But for the first few laps, I think that inside line, or the middle line rather, is going to be some prime real estate for these drivers.
Without a doubt, but as I said, with these late models, they carry a lot more speed into the corner. So I think you're going to see a little bit sooner in this race than you saw in the modifieds, that top groove come into play. And I think it was really only Grant Wesley that was one of the first ones that went up to run right against the outside wall. I think you're going to see more drivers more often running up in that line the further this race progresses. For those that are just joining us, to remind you all, in this 50-lap main event, only green flag laps will count. So if a caution comes out, those pacing laps will not count. It will be 50 laps to determine this championship. And right now, the interval, it's 8 points. Grant Wesley over Steve Robbins. We're going to have to see if Grant Wesley can double down and be a dual champion here this weekend at Knoxville.
And what a story that would be to go into a doubleheader and not win one but both championships. He didn't have to win the race in the first race, or the first championship, in order to take it, but he's going to be gunning for the win here tonight in our late model main event. We'll have to wait and see what happens. 50 laps ahead of us here at Knoxville. Rick Gibson, Scott Monksgaard will get us underway. We're green flag racing yet again here at Knoxville.
See how much room's going to be given for these drivers. We saw them 3 wide and on occasion 4 wide in the modified race. Looks like double wide. Ooh, nice crossover there from second to the lead by Scott Monksgaard in the 41.
He's trying to the inside line. He's trying, one of the first drivers to try that inside line to see if it'll stick. So far, it's working wonders for the 41, as he's not really been able to have a challenge from Rick Gibson. In fact, almost has him cleared coming out. Oh, a bit of a checkup from the 41, but still holds it. Rick Gibson on the outside, though, powers back around.
Grant Wesley's actually dropped back a little bit, started in the 4th position, now finds himself in 5th, looking for that 0.73 of Steve Robbins. He's closing into the same vicinity as the 88, to be able to work his way up to 7th, now under fire from Trevor Garou. Oh, we got a wreck! Ryan Hogue flipping on the back straightaway. He got into it with, I believe that was the 14, I'm sorry, make that the 30 of Travis Poulin.
That was a lot of damage that I just saw on Brian Hogue's machine. The axle on the car sticking out. That might be night done if he has to use a fast road. I think these drivers have a fast repair, but he's going to have to get it towed to get back to pit road, and that might spell the beginning of the end for this 14 machine. And he had such a good run last time out. It was just contact. I don't think he quite knew exactly if he was clear or not.
Had a 3rd place run in the modified race earlier on tonight and had a top 5 finish, 5th place the last time these late models were here at Knoxville. So certainly someone that we were going to be keeping our eye on. And the tough break there for Brian Hogue is the fact that his car ended up stopping while upside down. So he had to teleport to pit road. That's an extended stay on pit lane for him. If he had actually been on his wheels, he probably could have made it back to pit lane, used the fast repair, gotten back out on the lead lap. Not certain how many laps he's going to lose here under pacing.
We're going to look at it from Travis Pullen's point of view, and yeah, it just came right up on them, and you can see the 14 spinning down into the next turn. And the 15 was also involved. That was Sean Kerrigan got some damage as well. So about 3 cars involved on that last time around. And we had a early caution late, or in the last race, we have an early caution again this time around. And that set us up for a pretty big green flag run later on. So you think we're going to see more of the same, as Rick Gibson is going to lead us down to the green flag momentarily. But so far, the first race and the second race kind of looking the same.
Yeah, definitely are. You're right. I think the caution in the modified race came out on lap 2. Late model's first caution comes out on lap 3. And I believe the next caution they had was around the halfway point. So, we'll see if this late model race follows the same trends that the modified race was earlier on tonight. But I think that basically that was just an argument over space. I think we're settling in for a long green flag run just based on what I saw in the initial start.
These cars are much bigger than the other machines that ran here tonight, the 358s. And whoa, look at the slide that Ethan Sprague had as he was trying to hold his position against Scott Monksgaard. But now Monksgaard sails it into the inside line. He's trying to get the advantage out of the turn, but it looks like that Sprague on the outside line is going to at least pull alongside. That inside line, though, I think is starting to come in.
Well, I'll tell you what, I talked about that outside line, that wall line, how drivers would be going up there earlier. I didn't expect it as soon as lap 4. Grant Wesley and Ethan Sprague both running right up against the wall. Looks like Ryan Stillwell has found that line as well. So I'm trying to figure this one out too, because with only 5 laps under the belt, the middle line has not been rubbered in enough that these drivers have to start searching. I'm wondering if it's just the ability to carry a lot more speed through the corner.
It might be so, and to be able to get the run out of the turn. I think the corner exit is what these drivers are after the most. And the inside line, it's working out for one driver, and it's Steve Robbins. He's all the way down on the inside line when we go through turns 3 and 4. Now we're in 1 and 2. He's running right where Wesley is, trying to block the advance of the 88. But now he makes a fool out of me. He actually runs the extreme outside line this time around in the 223. Now it's Wesley on the inside line trying to make a position. This is a battle between the top 2 of the championship. Although if it was right now, Wesley would be the champion. But there was a bit of a spin starting to happen for Robbins.
And there's some contact being exchanged up here inside of the top 4 as well. And this is starting to be something we usually see with the late models. Everybody wanting the same line and then contact being made in the entry to the corner. We had Ethan Sprague into the back of Rick Gibson a couple of laps ago, and now it's going to be Sprague trying to shoot up the middle, 3 wide. What a power move by Sprague. Just barely cleared Monksgaard. Slide job up the track, clears for the top position.
Yeah, Monksgaard got a piece of the inside wall, not the wall, but the little dirt mound that comes up the elevation change, and that made his car unsettled. Certainly doesn't seem to have affected his car, though, because he's 3 wide for the lead of the race between him, Sprague, and Stillwell. And now Sprague gets out on top. Undoubtedly the leader now, but he's got a lot of hungry drivers behind him. You can see that Robbins is on the extreme inside line now.
Saw him up there on that banking on that inside line, lost himself a little bit of momentum, and Rick Gibson's looking around saying, wait a minute, what just happened? I was leading 2 laps ago, now I'm back in traffic, and now he finds himself into the wall down the front straightaway.
Gibson in the wall, trying to keep it off the wall. He's back into it, though. No caution, but there's a lot of damage on that 38 machine. He gets it going the right direction, but that is a car that you want to come down and get repaired as quickly as you humanly possibly can, because they're back in the whole right side of the car looks like it's all torn off.
You know, it kind of seems like a weird term to use for a race car, but these late models are very delicate. That hit you saw him take was into a steel guardrail, and you could clearly see, even after he'd gotten off the wall, the suspension issue might have knocked out the toe. Was trying to figure out just how bad the damage was, if he could still drive that thing. Now, for the time being, he's still out there on the racetrack, albeit outside of the top 10.
He's just trying to muscle his car around the track at this point in the race. Doing a pretty good job of it, though. He's been able to keep it at least somewhat going in the right direction, does that 38 car. At the front of the field, though, the battle for the lead is heating up, and they might end up catching the 38 if everything goes quickly. He's about on the opposite end of the racetrack right now, and he is losing time to this top 2. So that's something that he's going to have to keep an eye on if we do continue to go green. Right now what he wants is yellow to maybe come down and get some repairs done to his car. Battle for the lead still is Stillwell between Sprague and Stillwell to the inside line. I don't know which line is the better one. Whoa, and Stillwell almost loses it.
The race lead as well. He had it for a brief moment there before getting slideways. Sprague's going to take the top spot. And the other thing we kind of lose sight of when it comes down to a championship battle is we watch those drivers that are battling for the championship and lose sight of the fact that everybody else in the field, they want to finish out the season with a victory as well. You got Ethan Sprague, 4th in the overall standings, leading this race. Ryan Stillwell, 8th in points. Both of these drivers are still looking for their first late model win of the season.
And right now they are showing that they are contenders for this win, still battling side by side, looking just as if they were battling for the championship, and they're battling for bragging rights right now. There's nothing holding them back, no points on the line, no championship to fight. They can leave it out on the line, and right now they're putting on one heck of a show. But there's someone that's laying in the wakes, hoping that they have a bit of a mishap, as Stillwell's going to get up in front and try to get in front, and he has. And so far, oh, now here comes Sprague to the inside line to try and move. Does he do the crossover to slide right in front? Oh, there's some contact, but they do trade positions yet again.
Well, again, a front row seat of that battle for the lead are Steve Robbins and Grant Wesley, but they almost had their own problems off turn 4 a couple of laps ago as Robbins tried to slide in between Grant Wesley and Scott Mungsgaard. It almost didn't work. I don't know if he just had enough momentum or if Wesley lifted, but that could have been our two championship competitors involved in our second caution of the night.
That could have been disastrous for these guys. I think, though, if they did both go out of the race, it would still be Wesley taking the championship, although it would be a very interesting way to take the championship. You never want a DNF to win the championship, and I don't think I've ever seen that happen where a driver could DNF and win a championship, but certainly right now it's a case that they could happen. But Wesley, he doesn't want to have that happen. He drives it extremely deep, kind of diamonds the corner, but it works for him somewhat. Here comes Robbins to the inside, trying to make that battle back on the inside line, but Wesley around the outside is going to get the power out of the turn.
I think I saw somebody down on the apron off the pace. That's the 83 of Lance Mungsgaard. He's coming down pit road. This would be an unscheduled stop because in this 50-lap event, these drivers should not have to pit for fuel at all. So not certain what's going on with Lance, but he is off the pace on pit road and now finds himself off the lead lap back in the 14th position.
And he's going to lose a lot of laps if he continues to stay on pit road. I think he actually got in and out of his car. Again, he's now back in his car. And I don't know if he's going to be able to get back in the race. Certainly will be a number of laps down, not able to get those laps back. Speaking of laps, these drivers are going to have to deal with some lap traffic. Sprague is now catching up to the back end of what I believe is the 14 machine of Brian Hogue. So they're going to have to figure out a way to get around this much slower car of Hogue.
Brian Hogue, one lap down right now in the 13th position, of course, involved in our only yellow flag of the night when his car was flipping into turn one. And you know that for Brian Hogue as well, with him running that top side, it's going to kind of change up the line these top three are going to have to run. I think the only one that's really been down at the bottom of the racetrack at all in these final 5 laps has been the 80 of Grant Wesley. That's when he made the move on Steve Robbins for third.
And that's kind of a little bit of no man's land. Everyone's running the extreme outside line right now, including Hogue, which is going to be next on the hit list for these drivers. They've caught him. Now they got to figure out a way to get around him as he's right where these drivers are supposed to be. And he's going to try it, but I think that Sprague was going to get a little bit down in there, but he kind of thought better of it. Now here comes Stillwell to try the inside line.
Going to try and use the 14 as a pick for the race lead. Not going to be successful. Now Wesley with the momentum is going to dive to the inside for second place. Now I would certainly hope that Brian Hogue's going to get out of the way of these race leaders as he's off the lead lap. But bear in mind, the reason he'd be battling right now is if he gets put another lap down, that's -2. Caution comes out, he gets the free pass, he only gets one of the laps back. So right now what he's battling for is the opportunity for a caution to come out, get the free pass and be back on the lead lap, but I'm not certain he's going to be able to do so as Sprague powers around the outside.
He's trying to hold it on the inside line. You can see he's hoping that if he can get in front for just long enough to get a yellow to come out, that would be enough. But so far, the leader is going to get around, and now here comes Wesley also to get around of the lap machine. Now they're going to set their sights on Rick Gibson, who was also involved earlier on. Didn't bring out a yellow, but still with an extremely damaged 38 machine. I think it's going to be a little easier to put him down a lap as they're approaching on him in quick succession. Although he's running the extreme inside line, everyone's going to be able to freight train around the outside.
And Grant Wesley, don't forget, back in the modified race, finished second place and was able to pick up the championship. Now he's in second place again. The only thing is, though, he's right at the back door of Ethan Sprague for the race lead, and he's still got 20 laps to work with.
Yeah, there's a lot of time left in this race, and they're flirting with that outside retaining wall lap after lap. We're seeing the line go further up the track, and it bites Wesley. He gets a bit of the guardrail coming out of turn number 4 down the front straightaway. That could have been disastrous if it got caught on the car. You can see him struggling to keep off the outside wall, but that seems to be the fastest way around the racetrack. You gotta run that high. Now shifts to the inside line, thinking that the outside is too dangerous. You can see Stillwell on the outside. He's gonna take the lead away from Sprague, who gets a piece of the wall.
And to kind of steal a quote away from Larry McReynolds, these cars are driving terrible. The reason being, if you watch these drivers from the back end, look at that rear spoiler. We're told that if that thing is in pristine condition, you've got optimal downforce going through the corners. Every single one of our top 3's rear spoilers are absolutely crinkled.
Not only that, but the track is evolving over the course of all these laps. You can see now the middle line basically non-existent. no grip whatsoever. They're having to go to these extremes, to the inside and the outside, and you can tell that Wesley doesn't want to be on the outside line for what he just saw. Ryan Stillwell gets a piece of it, and now he's going to lose the lead to Wesley, and here comes Sprague to the inside line. You know he doesn't want to run the outside line any more than he has to.
That's the second time in the last 2 laps that Ryan Stillwell's gotten up into the outside wall, and so obviously that top line, either it's going away or he's just carrying too much speed into the corner. Now he'll switch down to the inside line on Ethan Sprague, but Grant Wesley now out in front, trying to set sail. That last time by, he was 0.3 of a second faster than the 2 behind him.
And if you look back further into the field, you can see our second driver who is involved in the points battle, Steve Robbins, not having the run that he needs to have, mired back in 5th place in a battle right now with Scott Monksgaard. He needed to finish 8 positions ahead of Grant Wesley in order to take the championship. Right now, he is 4 positions behind, losing the points battle and seeing the championship with every lap that ticks by go further and further away from reality as Wesley's putting down some really fast laps right now. He's actually moved back to the outside line now that he's not battling for any position. That seems to be where he likes to run, but you saw earlier with the battling going on, it wasn't possible for the 88 machine. Now here comes the 9. I want to bet, though, Ryan Stillwell is probably the fastest out of these 2, as Ethan Sprague has fallen off the pace quite a bit. I think he's gotten a piece of the wall again.
Yeah, Stillwell only lost the lead because of a driver mistake in that outside wall. You're right. I think he is a little bit faster than Grant Wesley. The question is, when he gets up to him, what can he do with him? What lines does he have as an option? I mean, right there, he's able to drive it from the entrance to the center a lot deeper than Grant Wesley is. But I think that one of the things that's really interesting here with this type of racing and the scenario we have here tonight, Anthony, is, a lot of people will look at these dirt track races and they'll kind of say, you know what, wake me up when the main event happens, because the heat races, they're just to determine who's going to qualify where. But with the fact that the bonus points come into play for finishing up inside the top 3, as Wesley runs a little wide that time, still we're going to try to take the lead, but the fact that the bonus points are available, we had a scenario coming into this race where Steve Robbins could make it a tie for the points lead between himself and Wesley before the main event green flag even flew. Then after the heats were over, it's Grant Wesley +8 over Steve Robbins. So it's almost like the entire script flipped that we had prepared for the start of this race. So a lot goes into those heat races that we really don't realize, and in this case, possibly a championship.
Indeed so. It could have been where all you had to do was finish in front of Wesley was all that Robbins had to do. It's almost like if, say, Formula One, if all of the practice and qualifying sessions you ran, all those, you would get points for finishing in certain positions in those particular sessions as well. The same for NASCAR. You can take that and apply it to any discipline, really, and then all of a sudden the whole dynamic of the race changes. And that's what these drivers have to go through week in and week out, knowing that the qualifying races really do matter. Like you said, they're not just qualifying races. They are championship implicators, and it was a big one tonight. Right now, Wesley running the outside line, but with only 7 laps to go, make that about 6.5 now. Stillwell on the inside line. He's taking the fight to the 88. He wants to prove that he belongs up in this lead group of cars. He's looking for his first win of the season, I believe.
And with being up here in the booth, I'm able to say, if it's my scenario, I want to back off. Let Ryan Stillwell go. Let him win this race, because I've right now got about 2 seconds over Steve Robbins to win this championship. But then again, it's not my championship to win. Grant Wesley and every single one of these competitors, as soon as they put the helmet on, they want to be the first of that checkered flag. So Wesley, despite the fact that a championship hangs in the balance, you can bet he is going to give it his all here to try and snipe this win away from Ryan Stillwell.
Well, Wesley got a major piece of the outside guardrail, actually. Is all the way up there on the outside trying to hold that line, but you can see just how close he is to flirting with the outside wall. He is getting some fast speed, so you can see he's actually almost drawn even with the 9 car going down the back straightaway, but we're coming down to the last 3 laps of the race. I don't think that Wesley has enough time to get around Stillwell at this point with the lead that he's been able to accumulate. I think that it's not smooth sailing, but Stillwell definitely has an advantage over Wesley. I say that. Here comes Wesley powering around the outside line trying to draw even.
Yeah, here's the thing. He doesn't have to get around Stillwell. He just has to get beside him coming to the checkered flag. And with the runs I've seen him get off of turn 4, he can certainly do that. If he can just barely by inches edge ahead of Ryan Stillwell at the start-finish line, that's as good as finishing 3 seconds ahead of him.
Coming down to the white flag, one more lap for these drivers here in our late model main event. Can Stillwell hold on for one more lap? Can Wesley take the win away? We're about to find out going through 1 and 2 for the final time.
Steve Robbins running about 1.5 seconds behind Grant Wesley. Unless something happens to that 88 here in these final couple of corners, Wesley's going to get this championship. But can Stillwell hold him off in these final couple of corners to get his first win of the season? Looks like he can if it's picture perfect.
Answer is yes. Ryan Stillwell has won tonight. For the first time this season, he takes victory here at Knoxville, and Grant Wesley is your double champion tonight as he won both the 358s and now the late model championship as well.
Grant Wesley was the late model champion back in season 3, came up runner-up last year to Tim DeSchwart, but now back in the championship circle. And to your point, how ironic is it that the champion in 2 races here tonight is going to finish in second place? Wesley finished second in the modified race, and he finishes second here in the late model race.
It seems like lightning does strike twice. You don't have to win the race in order to get the championship, but it certainly would make you feel better. But still, a double championship tonight. You got to imagine that down in the 88 camp, they are having the best time of their life right now. They are not only 1, but 2 championships tonight, and they didn't have an easy time getting them either. They had to fight their way around traffic. They had to fight for the lead. Ryan Stillwell took a heck of a battle to the 88 of Wesley, so it wasn't easy for him. And also, give Scott Monksgaard some credits. He finishes 3rd place after everything's said and done for a podium.
Yeah, Monksgaard's got very good numbers here this season at Knoxville as far as the late models are concerned. This now going to be his 2nd straight podium finish, as he was 3rd place the last time these drivers were here tonight. And, as far as Ryan Stillwell also, if we look at his numbers back during the modified series, he had 4 trips to victory lane. He kind of struggled a little bit here with the late models. His best finish, 2nd place. He did that twice at Kokomo and at Volusia, but a lot of the other runs that he had were in the latter half of the top 10. Here tonight, finally breaks through with his first trip to victory lane, and what better place to do it than in the season finale?
Indeed, it makes you feel good when you've got a whole season and you can finally pull one out of the rabbit's hat and gets a fantastic win. You can see just how dirty these cars are. They have worked hard for this fight all race long, and 50 laps have gone by. Only 1 yellow for the entirety of our second main event. So a fantastic clean race that these drivers put on. The cars maybe not so clean, but the drivers and the driving was what was the main event here tonight. We're going to get our top 3 in the booth really quickly. We're going to start with our 3rd place finisher. That would be Scott Monksgaard. We're looking for him to get in the booth. Here he is.
User was moved to your channel.
Hey, Scott, it's Anthony and Seth in the Flatout Racing Network booth. You got us.
Yeah, I got you.
Well, a podium finish here tonight, and you had quite a big few battles on the racetrack tonight in order to get this 3rd place. You won one of your heat races, didn't turn out the way you wanted it to maybe, but so far you had a good run. What was the track conditions like, and what do you think these cars with the new tire model?
Well, it was a pretty good run, and then I got to apologize to Rick Gibson. I got into him, and I hate that. It's the new tire models definitely added some complexity to to what we were used to. So trying to get used to it, you got to try and drive it a little bit straighter, which is a little unnatural from what we were used to. So overall, I think it was pretty good. Track changed quite a bit, which was kind of fun. So hats off to Grant and Ryan and Steve Robbins. I got him there on the last lap. I'm not sure if he got a little loose there or what, but he was pretty good as well.
Scott, we talked about you as a driver to definitely watch here tonight, just based on the fact you had a podium finish here when you guys came to Knoxville earlier on in the season. Certainly a strong race car here tonight, it looked like. I gotta wonder too, we saw how last time out at Knoxville, it seemed like if you had good starting track position, you had a really good chance of a good finishing position. But was that the case here tonight? Did it feel like Knoxville was a little bit different, where you could actually make passes and work your way through the field, or was it really about starting track position this evening again?
No, I think it was I don't know that track position was all of it. There's definitely some people that passed me early pretty quickly. So, and then through attrition or through the laps, I got back by them. But, I don't think that it was quite track position related.
Now we saw that you had a pretty good run in the first heat that you ran tonight for these late model cars, and then it kind of transferred over. These cars, they seem to handle kind of interesting when the kind of the middle line kind of went away. Was the inside line kind of the way you needed to be at on this racetrack? Or we saw a lot of drivers go to the extreme outside line. For you, what was the best line to run around this track all night long? Because we saw a plethora of different lines being taken tonight.
Well, normally I'm pretty good here around the bottom, but with this setup and these tires, I haven't got enough practice to be good at that, and I'm not great at, I think you probably saw when Grant went by me. I thought I was at the fence or pretty close to it, and he went blowing by me on the outside. So I'm not the best at the top. I like running the middle if I can get enough traction. So I was kind of having to do a little bit of a slider type line to through the middle there that seemed to be okay. But I got some work to do on the bottom and the top.
Well, you certainly pulled off quite an amazing drive in order to kind of fall back and then gain those positions back. You got a podium tonight, and congratulations on your third place tonight. Before we let you go, though, we're going to open the floor to you for some sponsors and some shout-outs.
Yeah, definitely RTG and all the guys that run this. They put on a good league, and it's fun to be a part of. So, Hardcore Fish and Game, they help me a lot as well. So, appreciate everybody's support. Thank you, guys.
Well, that was our third place finisher, Scott Monksgard, here tonight. Got a pretty good run in both of our main events tonight, and we hope to see you next season if you come back and race next season.
Yeah, sure will. Thanks, guys.
User was moved out of your
Now,
channel.
instead of the last time we got Grant Wesley in first, but we're actually going to get our winner of this race in, Ryan Stillwell, first. We'll do his interview, and then we'll get to our champion, Grant Wesley.
User was moved to your channel.
Hey, Ryan, it's Anthony and Seth from the Flatout Racing Network booth. You got us?
Yeah, I got you.
Congratulations on your first win of the season in the late models. You certainly put on a clinic in the last few stages of the race. That inside line seemed to form pretty quickly for you, and I saw that you all were running on the outside line from the beginning of the race, and then it kind of tapered to the inside line. But how was your race overall? Do you feel that your car was handling the way you needed it to, or do you think that Wesley was taking a fight to you and you're just kind of holding on for dear life?
The car was fast. I felt like I was faster than him even whenever I was behind him. I was just biding my time because it was one lane. And I was real hesitant to go down on the bottom, but it got so choppy up there into 3 that we kept getting in the wall. And Grant flew by us down on the bottom, and that's where I prefer to be. That's where I love to be. I'm a bottom feeder. And as soon as he showed me that lane, I was like, oh, if you want to play the game, I know I can beat you down there, so I'll go down there. And the car felt great.
Now, Ryan, obviously we documented here tonight the fact that even though this track is spacious, there is a little bit of a bump, a little bit of an elevation change down towards the inside of the racetrack. And, most of the short tracks, the dirt short tracks we go to, they give you like some tires, or they give you some kind of an indication of where that transition begins. You were running right down there on the inside line. Was there a visibility problem finding out where that transition starts, or did you know kind of from muscle memory where it was?
No, it's all muscle memory. So if you go back and watch, you'll watch a lot of people how they run the bottom here. Is you just kind of work that left front until you can feel the berm with the left front, and you just kind of ride the left front right there, and it's almost like you're on rails down there on the bottom whenever the track's like that.
Now, we saw that your car was strong all night long. You had a big battle with Grant Wesley at the later stages of the race. As far as the track conditions go, and I know I touched on it with the first question, but the track seemed to change over the course of the race, and you kind of had to go all about the racetrack. But for you getting your first win tonight, how difficult was it to take the fight to Grant Wesley, knowing that he was in the battle for the championship, and he wanted to get a win, but you were able to pull out your first win of the season? What was the battle between you and Wesley like in the last couple of laps from your point of view?
I mean, from my point of view, it was this simple. I knew he was going to probably win the championship because of where he was at, and I'll be danged if I was going to let him win the championship and win the race.
You certainly did take the fight to the champion here tonight, and we want to congratulate you on your win here tonight. I hope to see you next season if you do come back and race next season. But before we let you go, we're going to open the floor out to you for some sponsors and some shout outs.
Yeah, I want to thank you guys for putting on a great broadcast as always, Flatout, and Checkers and Wreckers for always being with me, and BW Sports One. They've been with me from the start, and they're great sponsors and great friends. Grant and all those guys at RTG that put on this race. I mean, it's a great room, great guys. We always have fun, and I wish I had had a better 358 race, but I'll take the win.
Well, that was Ryan Stillwell, winner of our main event in the late model series, and I again will want to extend a congratulations to you for your win tonight. I hope to see you next season. Get a few more wins under your belt.
Yes, sir.
User was moved
And now
out of
we're
your
going to get our
channel.
champion, our double champion tonight, Grant Wesley in the
User was
booth.
moved to your channel.
Hey Grant, it's Anthony and Seth in the Flatout Racing Network booth. Welcome back.
Hey guys, good to see you. I don't know about you, but I am sweating after that one.
It certainly was a battle of attrition on that on the closing stages of the race. We asked Ryan the same question. We're gonna ask you the same. The outside line, it certainly did seem to be kind of a make or break line tonight, especially in turns 3 and 4 when it got bumpy. Were you comfortable up there, or did you really have to go to the inside line? And more importantly, how did your car feel all night long? Because it certainly seemed like it was a bear to drive.
Yeah, the new tire model has most certainly made the cars really tight. They're really snug. I'm not saying I don't like it. It's definitely a lot better than it was. Yeah, I was having a real hard time gauging which was better for me, the top or the bottom. I know there at one point I went to the bottom and I was able to make some moves to get past a few of those guys, and I got to the lead. And I kind of kept looking at my little virtual mirror there that iRacing gives us, and I'd see Ryan closing in on me, so I'd try the top, and I was happy with the speed I had around the top, but yeah, it was very treacherous, especially 1 and 2. It had like 5 or 6 jumps up there, and I hadn't quite figured out. I mean, I still don't know exactly how to hit that to kind of keep the car out of the wall. And there at the end of the race, it seemed like I'd get a monster run off the top, and I'd blow by Ryan down the back, and then the next time, he would just pull away on the bottom. So I'd try the bottom, and I wouldn't be able to do nothing down there. And like I said, I was just having a hard time gauging which was better. New tire model, it definitely threw a monkey wrench into things.
Well, Grant, so many times during the course of a weekend, we see you be able to sweep the wins in both the modifieds and late models. Here tonight, you end up being a dual champion. So first off, congratulations on that. I'd love to say that your work is done, but we both know different. Of course, you're going to be trying to win 3 championships here tonight, as we've got the Amish Survivor Series coming up here on FRN at 10:30. A little shameless plug there. But, obviously, I'm up here in the booth. You're down there on the racetrack. I know that every time you go out there and take that green flag, you want to be the first one to the checkered flag. But with the battle we saw going on between yourself and Stillwell, was there any point in the back of your mind where it kind of entered in of, hey, I'm battling for a championship here as well. Let me back off, make sure I don't make any mistakes, and throw this championship away?
Yeah, that thought definitely crossed my mind at least once, but then I got real greedy, and I was like, man, I'm having a ton of fun up here next to the wall. So, I just let it all hang out, and I had a great time.
Certainly seemed like you had a great time all night long, and it's kind of hard not to have a great time when you know that you've locked up 1 championship coming into the late model race, and then at the end of the race you find yourself locking up the 2nd championship. And like Seth said, you're going for a 3rd championship tonight, so it could be a trifecta for you tonight. What kind of momentum does this take going into the next season of the Dirt Series? Do you think that you can carry this momentum going in? After all, you are one of the winningest drivers in this series. Going forward to the next season, do you think you can take that momentum in, or do you think that some of these drivers, such as Ryan Stillwell, might put up a fight next season for the championship?
We got a lot of great drivers here at RTG. That's never take a championship for granted. You know, it's hard enough just to get one here, but man, I'm so excited to have landed both of them this season. Um, yeah, huge momentum. You know, it gives you tons of confidence going into next season. But also, I do realize we got a lot of great drivers here. Ryan, he's tough to beat. Um, you know, there's 5 or 6 guys that could win any weekend, and yeah. So like you said, Amish Survivor Series is coming up next. I'm leading points over there. I got a little bit bigger point lead in that one. That's a different deal. It's a wreck 'em up race with NASCAR 2003. It's a ton of fun. I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully, I can take the momentum out of this and roll it into that and get 3 championships this season.
Well, that is your championship winner for not one, but 2 races tonight, and he will lock up the championship. Well, you might lock up the championship in another series as well. So, wish you luck in the Amish Survivor Series. But Grant Wesley, before we let you go, we want one more time to open the floor to you for some sponsors and shout outs.
Yeah, as always, thanks to you guys for doing the broadcast. You guys are great. I'd like to thank the owners here at Rolling Thunder Gaming for giving us such a great place to race. My fellow admins, Brian Hogue and Brian Ordo. Um, I'd like to thank just all the drivers that's been coming out and racing with us. You know, without you guys, this really wouldn't be possible. Just really appreciate the hard racing and all the fun. I'd like to thank, you know, my mom and dad, my nieces, Maya and Chloe, my girlfriend Brittany for watching. Thanks for watching, and I'd like to thank my teammates at XFM.
Once again, Grant Wesley, double champion tonight here in the RTG Dirt Series, and we hope to see him next season, maybe go for another set of championships. But for now, we'll let you go, and we'll watch your progress in the Amish Survivor Series.
Thank you, guys.
User was moved out
Well,
of your
Seth,
channel.
a season comes to a close, and we have crowned ourselves a champion for 2 different series. Something interesting that happens in pretty much only dirt series where you run 2 disciplines and can still come out with a single champion. And I gotta say, it was one spirited battle through and through all night long, and Grant Wesley comes out on top for both of those races. What were some of your takeaways from the weekend?
The 2 things that I definitely took away that were very interesting to me was, number 1, the heat races in both of the series seemed to really be the talking point and the main focus of determining who the champion eventually was going to be. Grant Wesley was able to get bonus points in his heat with the modifieds. That pretty much helped to secure him the championship with a decent finish in the main event. And then we move on to the late miles. He was able to get himself some bonus points in his heat race there. That helped him to have enough of a cushion between himself and Steve Robbins that with a decent finish, he was able to win the championship there. The other thing that I also noticed as well, we had those drivers that were in the battle for the championship, but there were other drivers in the field that wanted to get that W. Rick Gibson winning in the modified race and Ryan Still in the late model race. Neither one of these drivers were in their championship battles in those respective series, but they wanted to make sure that they were going to finish out the season with a trip to victory lane.
Go out on a high note going into next season for some of these drivers, looking that they can maybe be in the position to take the championship next season, and a lot of momentum being carried over from their wins tonight. Ryan Stillwell certainly has the speed in order to do it, at least in the late models, as he showed quite a bit of gusto on that inside line, as he was able to be one of the only drivers that really made that inside line work in the late models. And then Rick Gibson was just perfect throughout the race in the 358s. He was able to go from the back of the pack all the way to the front of the pack and get the win, having to go through quite a few drivers in order to do so. There's 12 drivers in that particular race, and having to go from last to first is certainly hard in any race, and then you throw in the unpredictability of a dirt circuit. It is one of those things that you love to see. You love to see a driver wheel it around the racetrack, being as fast as they can and putting them down, and that was certainly fun to watch. And Seth, it has been a long race, a long couple races tonight, but you've still got one more to do. So I'm going to let you rest up, but thank you for joining me in the booth, and it's been a pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely. If everybody still wants to be tuning in to some exciting racing, this might be a first for us here tonight. We're going to be, as Grant alluded to, broadcasting a Wreck 'em Up series finale. I can't wait to see just how crazy cameras are going to be, how much swapping of drivers I'm going to have to do in this one. But yeah, it's the season finale for the RTG Amish Survivor Series. Grant Wesley, of course, trying to go for a trifecta here tonight, and they'll be taking that season finale at New London Waterford Speedway. Ever heard of it? If you haven't, you're not alone. I've never heard of it either, but we're all going to experience it together. Green flag for that, and broadcast will start at 10:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, so it's just moments away. Be sure to tune in.
Don't go anywhere. A lot of racing on the Flatout Racing Network tonight, and it's going to be one of those races where you tune in and just enjoy the thrill ride. And I hope to see that Grant Wesley does well there, and all the drivers in that series hope they do well. But for this series, the RTG Dirt Series, a season comes to a close, meaning that the next season is upon the horizon, and you want to stay tuned for that season coming up as well. Grant Wesley going in as a double defending champion for the RTG Dirt Series. I'm Anthony McCurry along Seth Cole. Don't go anywhere. Plenty of racing on the Flatout Racing Network, as we've still got another championship to settle tonight. Until then, we'll see you next time. Good night.
This broadcast is the copyrighted work of Flatout Racing Network and may not be rebroadcast, retranslated, or used in any form without the express written consent of Flatout Racing Network and iRacing.com Motorsports Simulations. Flatout Racing Network would like to thank you for your support, and we hope you enjoyed tonight's broadcast.